Welcome in to It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom. I am Taylor. You can find me on Twitter at Taylor_Witt. And here with me, filling in for Austin, is honorary third member of the show, Dan Harms. You can find him on Twitter at InHarmsWay19, analyzing film for RGR Football and the Draft Network. Dan, the man, what's happening tonight?
You know what? I love it. I love being here with you. I always love being here with you in Austin, but being the honorary third member is definitely something that I appreciate and something that really it means a lot to me. I love being here with you guys and I love the fans of the show. So I'm doing great and happy to be here.
Well, our airwaves are always blessed whenever you find some time to tell us what's going on in the film room and with the Chiefs and all that fun stuff. So I am super happy that you're able to fill in while Austin does his yearly Europe trip that we all, of course, we all do, but we all come back from our yearly trips and he just stays out there forever. So we are brought to you by Fansided and Underdog Fantasy. We've got a great show lined up for you guys this week. We've got some news. We've got a Sunday Night Football Falcons recap. And we have the Chargers preview, such as it is. So without further ado, there is no injury news for the Chiefs to report. Typically, this part of the show, we talk about who got banged up on the last game and who's coming back soon or whatever other injury news we have to share. But Andy Reid said at the presser today that everyone on the active roster will practice this week. There are no injury designations so far for the game. There are a couple people listed on the injury report, but nothing. They all practiced in full. So I know it's only week 4, but given that the way the early part of the season has gone with Pacheco and Hollywood and just kind of some stuff, we will definitely take this win when we can get it. Pretty good news.
Absolutely. You love being able to get through some of these early games, especially how I think physical they've been to be able to they've eked out a couple of wins, 3 wins in a row where it's come down to the wire and you typically fight a little bit harder at the end of those games against, the Ravens. And I think the Falcons defense was very physical as well as their offense. So it's good to come out of those games relatively unscathed for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We, of course, got a long season, big marathon, so we'll take every week like this that we can get. We'll cover the Chargers injury situation when we preview that game at the end of the show because, woof, buddy, it is not the same for them, to say the least. Not really much to say in this part of the show, but believe me, if you're sticking around till the end of this thing, you're in for a treat. But in transaction news for the Chiefs, Kareem Hunt was elevated to the active roster. Keontae Ingram was cut. Kareem will get a chance to make an impact moving forward. Steele and P. Ryan, they've cycled in admirably. They've shown some promise, but neither one is exactly taking the running back one job by the horns yet by any means. Kareem's 29 years old, so not the youngest pup in the room, but he's only 16th among active running backs in rush attempts since 2017, his rookie year, with just over 1,000. What are your initial thoughts on the Kareem situation? You think he's got some tread left in the tires? Are you just excited to kind of see what he has, and we don't really know anything yet?
Yeah, I like that he's back in Kansas City. The way that it's all gone to this point to have a full circle moment, I think is going to be great for him. And we've seen how being happy and in a good situation can relatively change how you play. And I made this reference earlier in the week on the Bleacher Report show that I do with Sterling Holmes every week. And you
Busiest
look at
man in
Mike Pennel,
showbiz.
right? He is. You gotta give it to Sterling. The dude is nothing but talking all day, every day, and he is very very commendable. So I'm glad to be able to do that with him. And what I was saying was, getting back to Mike Pennel, like look how Mike Pennell's playing. He was on the 2019 roster that won the Super Bowl with the Kansas City
Hmm?
Chiefs. Do you guys remember how he played in that game, in any of those games? No, you don't.
No.
But when he was called off, the couch by Brett Veach this past year, he was a legitimate game changer in multiple playoff games. He seems to be really, really happy with his life. He's playing really good football, rejuvenated. So I'm excited because I think that just having a little change of scenery, coming back with some unfinished business at the end of what he went through and, dealt with, and now the 1-2 situation that he was with Nick Chubb, probably learned a little bit about that, about playing the running back position as well. I'm excited to see what he could do. My expectations are low, but as just a watching perspective, definitely excited.
Yeah, I think anybody that was a fan of the Chiefs around the time that Kareem, was drafted and came into the league saw what his potential was. I mean, he was explosive. He led the league in rushing in 2017 and, showed a lot more of that again in 18 before the situation happened with him that, caused him to get kicked off the team and all that drama.
Yeah.
And I thought his presser today was really honest and really he was open and just said that he learned a lot about himself. He was a kid. He was 23. He's 29 now. 6 years is a long time, especially 6 years in your 20s. You're basically a completely different person at 29 than you were at 23. And, the Chiefs have vetted the situation. They're the ones who kicked him out in the first place. And so they'd be the first people to, kind of balk at the idea of him coming back if they didn't think that it was worth giving the kid a second shot. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to it. I think that he has a lot to prove. And if you ever get a guy in the house that's hungry like him, sky's the limit.
Absolutely. And that's all you can really hope for, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's gonna do it for the news. There's not a lot of news going on. So real quick, just want to talk about how it's the greatest time of the year. We always love the fall, love football starting back up again. We know we've got a long season ahead of us as Chiefs fans. So let's buckle up and try and make some cash. There's been over 1 million fans across 33 states got into the game last year by making picks on Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite player's stats like touchdowns, passing yards, and more. Austin and I have both loved using Underdog. It makes watching these games a little more exciting when you've got some skin in the game, best ball drafts, higher or lower. Those are some of the things that I really think are unique and fun about Underdog. The app's easy, the interface is clean. This weekend, I just walked away with enough for a little free dinner. Didn't set the world on fire, but hit a Chiefs pick on Sunday Night Football. So, there's nothing like that dopamine hit when you nail a stat prediction and actually get paid to do it. Making picks on Underdog is straightforward. Signing up super easy. Head over to Underdog's simple to use mobile app or underdogfantasy.com. Sign up with promo code KINGDOM. That's right, KINGDOM, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Kingdom. Claim your new customer special on a free pick and your deposit offer. Must be 18 years or older, 21 or older in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 or older in Alabama and Nebraska, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369.
Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. Now is the time to make a plan. Whether you plan to vote absentee by mail, in person at your county auditor's office before Election Day, or at your polling place on November 5th, it's important you take steps now to make your plan at voterready.iowa.gov. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. Find more info at voterready.iowa.gov. This message is presented by the Iowa Secretary of State.
Okay, Dan, it is time to recap the Chiefs game at Atlanta on Arthur Blank night when Arthur Blank decided that Arthur Blank was worthy of inducting into the Arthur Blank Ring of Honor. And the Chiefs traveled to face the Falcons, a team that we're not exactly used to locking horns with it's about every 4 years or so that the AFC South and NFC South, or AFC West and NFC South, play each other. Not a lot of bad blood, not a ton of old friends among the rosters, just kind of two teams that are trying to measure up with each other and see how they're going to do. And in order to recap this game, we are going to use the same system that we always use on this show to recap football games, and that's the Chiefs system. Create drama, handle adversity, inspire hope, engage physically, finish strong, separate entirely. You all know the drill. We're going to start with create drama. Sunday Night Football. Love Sunday Night Football. Chiefs come to Atlanta. The Falcons had pulled off that last-minute miracle out in Philadelphia, avoided the 0-2 start to the season. A lot was made of the offseason with Kirk Cousins, and they brought in some kind of role player guys on offense like Darnell Mooney and Ray McCloud, but, certainly capable football players. And everyone knows the three high draft picks they've used on the skill positions with Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. They've put a lot of stock into that offense, not to mention their first round pick at quarterback, who's backing up Kirk Cousins right now, and Michael Penix. But I was keeping an eye on a couple of the vets they brought in late in the year to add to the defense. Matthew Judon and Justin Simmons. I thought that was really interesting that they were able to bolster their team in August with two, big name Pro Bowlers. They add those to guys on the defense like Jesse Bates, AJ Terrell, Grady Jarrett. You've got some action in Atlanta. You've got a team that looks like they're going to be competing for the South. So, of course, we're creating drama. They begin the game with the ball. They go through the Chiefs very easily, like a hot knife through butter. 7-play, 70-yard touchdown drive. Their only third down of the drive was a touchdown pass to Drake London from the 14-yard line on 3rd and 3. And then to create more drama, the Chiefs get the ball. And although they march down the field in a methodical drive that we'll talk about, just kind of their offensive philosophy, but this was a opening 17-play, 75-yard, 8-minute drive. But it ends tragically. Mahomes floats the ball into the end zone that Patrick's personal mortal enemy, Justin Simmons, picks off for his 6th career interception of Mahomes. So the Chiefs have made a habit out of creating drama these days, whether it's beginning, middle, and end of these games. There's just more drama to be had than we know what to do with. This one started out with some right off the bat. Did you see anything that stood out to you about the early back and forth, kind of the way that the two teams came out, or anything in that section there that you thought was particularly interesting?
At the end of the day, I thought that what they did defensively was just getting a feel for the offense. What were they trying to do? And the script for that first drive was not the same as the rest of the game. And it was pretty obvious. They came out with a play action pass on first down, caught Jalen Watson off guard. He didn't pay attention to Donnell Mooney, and they go for a big play there. They hit a couple of big plays later. But I mean, at the end of the day, when I'm looking at the miscommunication, Drew Tranquil wasn't paying attention to Najee Johnson at all. And he's sitting over here like he's telling him, when they're cross, I'm taking the guy that comes this way, or I'm going down there. You need to be going behind me, and he never does. So I'm having trouble right now with Drew Tranquil. I don't know what's going on because he doesn't look like the same player that he was last year to this point. And to be fair, a lot of the Chiefs players are still trying to get back into that, which maybe it's a Chiefs-centric thing. We're going to find out. I think after this game in particular, with Patrick throwing an interception for the 3rd straight game and 4 on the season, I think he's going to be taking more ownership on, let's lock in and get ready for these next slate of games, because we can't keep playing the same way, specifically on offense, and making these same mistakes all the time. You're not going to keep getting away with it. So I think that's going to help everyone else lock in as well. And then, so really, I was looking at the first drive and I was like, all right, fine. It seems like offenses are actually, every single offense on their first drive have gone and scored a touchdown against the Chiefs this year. But that's just been what it is. They've let up a touchdown every single time. So, and you could argue some weird things have happened.
Sure.
The miscommunication there against the Falcons, the multiple 3rd and longs against the Ravens. So just context is always important to that. There's always little pinnacles that happen with the defense, or this one play that probably shouldn't happen and it does, and you end up giving up a touchdown or a big play or a big conversion. So I always take that with a grain of salt, specifically because the defense has played so well after that I'm less likely to care. And then the offense, which outside of the first drive against the Baltimore Ravens, have not scored touchdowns very frequently on their first drives, much less their second and thirds. They've been actually really more of the second and thirds where they have, but in the second half is where they start to falter. So it feels offensively that they're trying to find themselves. In that first half of the football game for Patrick Mahomes, we've all seen it. He didn't look comfortable. He's talked about it. I have a tweet that has like 2,800 likes on it because I pointed out that Patrick looked uncomfortable. He looked weird, like teams are taking away Travis Kelce, and it makes him look a little off. And then he comes out in the second half and completely feels more comfortable. Mechanics are better, ball placement's better. So that just goes to show you that sometimes when we see something, they see it too, and they can correct it on the fly. And it's nice to see that they were able to do that. So that's really more of what I'm looking at, especially because it's still early in the season. I'm not trying to take too much away from some of the early struggles that they've had in different situations, but not being able to score touchdowns, matching touchdowns on first drives the last 2 games, especially when you're getting inside the red zone, is something to monitor.
Yeah. Their red zone offense has certainly been left a lot to be desired. And, with the mechanic stuff, Mahomes mentions both after this game and in press conferences this week that, there's certainly some fundamentals that he needs to go back to and work on. I especially liked a little blurb he had about how in practice, sometimes he finds himself throwing balls
Oh
to
yeah.
complete them instead of, exactly where he wants them and how he wants them. And so that's something that he said he's going to work on. So you're absolutely right. There's a lot there to take away other than just what happened in the box score on that, that the offense clearly needs to work on. So let's see if they worked on it during the game. We get to handle adversity. If the first 2 drives of this game represented the drama, the next 2, I would say, were them handling that adversity. The Chiefs first go out on defense after the interception, and Atlanta only manages 5 plays, 13 yards, punts the ball back to the Chiefs. Looked much better on defense there, and then they went on a second consecutive long drive of their own to start this game. But this time, of course, with the much better result. They converted 3 third downs on this drive, a 3rd and 1 to Kelsey, a 3rd and 8 to Justin Watson, and a 3rd and 3 touchdown pass to Rashee Rice for 13 yards. The side-to-side stuff was working well in this drive. The vertical still leaves a lot to be desired in the offense. But as far as stretching the field horizontally, I mean, this team does it better than anybody right now. Rashee Rice feels like he's getting open every single time over the middle of the field because defenders are just being sucked into Travis Kelsey. And despite him not having the production that everyone wants, he's certainly taking the eyes and he's certainly opening up some stuff for the offense. So obviously Rashee is the main benefactor there. Mahomes said today that if they keep doing that, Rashee's going to have 2,000 yards this year. So we'll see if that holds up. But at this point in the game, they had already run at the end of this touchdown drive 30 plays for 134 yards, but the red zone turnover meant that it was only 7-7. It was only a tie game instead of the dominant, tons of plays and tons of yards. So you got to like the way they came out on the road in a hostile environment, move the ball with efficiency. Anything about the offense at this point in the game with 2 long drives in it that, was unique, or is this just kind of who the Chiefs look like they are for the next little bit of stretch until they figure some stuff out?
Yeah, I think that getting those couple of drives was really important. It helped them get their confidence back, and that's important at the end of the day, right? It's trying to figure out how you can get to the red zone and throw an interception and then come back and have another long, sustained drive that they weren't really able to replicate a ton in the first couple of games, outside of 1 or 2 here and there. And that's what they want to do. That's what those long drive practice drills they do in training camp are for, to see how you can handle it. And I know Rashee Rice got a little winded at times because they are leaning on him because of how much gravity Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelsey are bringing. It's like defenses forgot that Rashee Rice nearly had 1,000 yards last year, and he's only getting better. He's so much better even now than he was as a rookie, and that seems to have everyone forgets. But Patrick was talking about today, if defenses just want to keep taking away Travis Kelsey, Rashee's gonna go for 2,000 yards. Like He's just gonna keep catching everything. So, and at the end of the day, that's what matters. Like, you find what works. And there was a screenshot from Jason Anderson, who's a radio host, showing one of the plays that you've got Noah Gray in the middle of the field with nobody around, at least 10 yards separation in all directions. That's because you've got 5 guys looking at Travis Kelsey and Xavier Worthy. That's what it is. That's what matters. And that's what this offense is going to be predicated upon until defenses say they are killing us every single drive in the middle of the field. We have to play more straight up. We can't just devote all these bodies to Travis or to Xavier Worthy. We have to take away this stuff in the middle of the field because we're just too tired. We're just too tired. And that's when you're going to hit the bomb. So I did like what they did with the offense, for sure, getting back into the rhythm, the run game, the pass game. They got the ball out quickly. They moved the pocket a little bit. They helped out Wanya Morris. And on the defensive side of the ball, they were just taking away everything that they wanted to do. Everything that they wanted to do. With the outside zone, the mainstay of the Falcons offense, Steve Spagnuolo said, no, you're not going to do it. And they couldn't run the ball all night. Couldn't do anything. And I think it was 16 carries for 32 yards from Saquon Barkley. Sorry, not Saquon Barkley, from Bijan Robinson.
Yeah. Yep.
it's a ridiculous stat line.
On a very talented running back, I mean, that's a bad stat line for a bad running back, much less a really good.
it was a good offensive line outside of the injuries. This is a good offensive line. It's a real. I really liked what they were building there. And when you're able to do that to Bijan, who is a top 5, I would say top 3 running back in the NFL right now,
Sure.
yeah, you're able to do that. You make them play left-handed. If you look at all the 3 games from Baltimore to Cincinnati to the Falcons, Steve Spagnuolo was already in midseason form and taking away what you want to do. You know, Derrick Henry, they wanted to come in and run the ball with Derrick Henry so they can get to all their other stuff. Derrick
Right.
Henry was pretty much ineffective outside the first drive. Okay.
Yep.
They're like, fine,
Yep.
you're not going to run there. I exclude Lamar Jackson from this conversation
Yeah.
because that he's an enigma. You can't stop Lamar Jackson if he wants to take off and run the ball. You really can't. So you exclude that. And then in week 2, you bring in Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, and Steve Spagnuolo says, hey, Trent McDuffie, you are the best corner on the field, and I want you to go take away Jamar Chase. And guess what? He takes away Jamar Chase, and he
Yeah.
gets in his head.
Yeah.
The quote after the game will live on until Jamar Chase can handle it, because
Mhm.
I don't know if you guys have heard. I'm assuming most of you have, because it's a fantastic quote. But still, Trent McDuffie is just like, yeah, just make sure he doesn't get the ball. If you make sure he doesn't get the ball, he's going to beat himself. Like, he'll implode. And guess what
That's
happened?
enough. Yeah.
He imploded. He imploded, and he cost the Bengals a huge penalty that allowed the Chiefs to come back and win that football game. Let's be very honest with ourselves. So
Mhm.
you do that, and then in this game, you take away the outside zone. They just completely take it away, and it forced the Falcons to have to play left-handed. And I would argue, outside of some miscommunications, they couldn't. The Falcons couldn't
Right.
play left-handed. So all around, I think it was a really good game plan. I think that they settled down offensively and were able to really get some good things going, which should get them confidence going, forward in the season.
Yeah, they were super effective at the outside zone against the Eagles in the comeback and that game last week. So it was really nice to see a team that had found some stuff and had been on a roll offensively come in and not be able to get it done. I'm sure they miss having Mike Vick if they wanted to play left-handed, because they did not have a chance to do that in this one. So that's inspiring hope. Or sorry, that is only handling adversity. We are now inspiring hope. And after the Falcons were gifted new life on their next drive, after what we can charitably say is a very questionable roughing the passer call on Chris Jones
Uh-huh.
on what would have been a third down stop, but I guess you just can't really touch guys anymore in the pocket, or it's going to get called. So they throw this 50-yard pass to Kyle Pitts, gets down to the 1-yard line. There are flags all over the field. There's a flag for offensive holding and defensive holding, but miraculously, the offensive holding flag gets picked up. There was no flag, and the Falcons have the ball on the 1. I'm not going to say anything. Obviously, there's been tons of stuff said about calls and all that, but it was a little weird. Falcons punch it in. They take a 14-7 lead on the Chiefs. The Chiefs then do answer with a field goal drive. The teams trade some punts. Atlanta takes over at their own 30 with a minute to go in the first half, and Turk Wharton gets home for a pressure and a hit on Kirk Cousins right as he throws it. Ball floats. Chamari Connor, ball hawk, game guy, was right there and intercepts it, and then does I guess, what is now the patented interception handoff by the Chiefs that no one else seems to do, but they sure like doing it. Hands it to Jalen Watson. He picks up another 10, 15 or so yards on the interception return. And so the Chiefs are, right back in business. There's only a couple seconds left, so they don't really do much with it. They throw a couple, might have been fade balls to see if they could get anything, but nothing was open. So they kick a field goal, and it's a 14-13 deficit at halftime. The Falcons are up 14-13. I was impressed just by the play of the defense, especially after the first drive of the game. I thought from that point on, they looked a ton better. I was pissed about the Chris Jones call, so I wasn't as much. That 50-yard pass to Kyle Pitts didn't bother me as much. You know, they they gave Atlanta some fits. And how'd you think things were shaping up at halftime? 1 point game on the road. How impressive have the first 3 games been for the combination that combined on that interception, Turk Wharton and Chamari Connor? What do you think was going on there?
Yeah, I think we can honestly say that all three players, all two of those players are playing the best football of their careers. And I know that Chamari Connor is a second-year player, but what we're seeing right now is Steve Spagnuolo unlocking him in different ways and getting him in the best situations. He's not a slot defensive end, or excuse me, a slot defensive corner that you're going to see him take away the quick twitch receivers. That's not what he does. He is a big nickel. He comes in, he plays against whatever tight end you want, whatever kind of physical player. But at the end of the day, he's almost like that pseudo linebacker where we saw L'Jarius Sneed come down multiple times and be
Totally.
near the offensive line and just put his face in there. And he had, I believe, 6 defensive stops last year. And for everyone that doesn't know, a defensive stop is basically a negative gain for the offense, like a 2-yard gain, a 1-yard gain, or a 0 or anything like that. That was just in the run game by himself. He had 6 of them. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
When you're able to consistently be a bully as a nickel, a big nickel, like in the run game, like he was, it wasn't just against, wide receivers. He was playing out with tight ends and trying to get in there with the offense. He was mixing up with anybody that wanted it. And he had no problem going in there and being physical. And I loved what we saw from him. And excuse me, really the 2 guys that did a great job. And this game was built for them were Shamari Connor and Nick Bolton. It was those 2 guys were everywhere. And what Turk Wharton has done, I think, to round out the defensive line, I was really worried about the defensive tackles. I'll be honest. I was worried. But we're seeing him, Turk Wharton, take massive steps as a pass rusher
Huge.
and as a run defender. And then you bring in Mike Pennell, who we mentioned already, who's playing maybe the best football of his career, getting sacks, lying down on the ground. I mean,
yeah, just reaching out and there he goes. Yeah, that was nice.
He did get pushed. Yeah, he did get pushed down. Like he was flattened on that play. So we do have to take it with a grain of salt. But it's an insane level of, I think that all those players are playing at such a high level. And I'm hopeful that they can sustain it. There's no reason to believe that they can't, given what we've seen out of this defensive group for the last 5 years, plus with Steve Spagnuolo. He's unlocked these guys, and Joe Cullen has really figured out how to get everybody in the best position to not only succeed, but to develop, right? And I think that's been what we've seen for the most part from Turk Wharton and Shamari Connor this last offseason to now. So they played fantastic. And I mentioned Nick Bolton. This was a great game style play for him because we know he's a great downhill, get after the running back. He's got that patented game against Derrick Henry where he just destroyed him multiple times when he was with the Titans. We have this game now where, again, he had 8 solo tackles. 7 of them were defensive stops. So, I mean, he was just
crazy
in the backfield constantly, or at least getting everywhere. And he also only played 46 snaps, which was about 82%, considering he played 100% of the snaps in week 1. And it was at a 76 or something like that. Yeah. It's a pretty good number to have. And he had missed time, obviously, in this game because of his back. Hopefully he's okay. Obviously he's practicing, but
I hope that was just spasms or something, right? Just something kind of short term, because that was a little concerning. Yeah.
Having back injuries in September is not exactly the thing that I want to be thinking
recipe
about
for success.
Yeah, for Nick Bolton. But hopefully he's okay. And like you said, just back spasms, that would be great. But this is just what he does. He's a downhill, get after it in the run game. And what I loved about this performance is that he looked healthy, right? Even with the injuries, it looked like he was back to what we know him to be. And for a guy who was exhausted and gassed in that opening week, it was definitely a much better outcome for him in this football game, even with the injuries that I think we could have hoped for. So I agree. The defense settled down. They got after it after that first drive. And I'm with you. I don't care so much about the bomb to Pitts. I don't really love having Justin Reed on Kyle Pitts in that situation. Right. I like Justin Reed as a player. He's just not a guy who's going to cover wide receivers. And let's be very honest. Kyle Pitts is a wide receiver.
Yes, he is.
He's not a tight end. So
yes, he is.
So
he might not be a 1,000-yard receiver with that Atlanta offense yet, but he is a matchup nightmare still. I mean, there's a reason that he was drafted that high. He's a freak, and that's, you can give up broken play type of bombs to a guy like that and not feel like your defense is. I mean, I think about some of the last recent big games for the Chiefs, especially the last playoff run, the Tyreek Hill touchdown in Arrowhead, and then the Zay Flowers touchdown in Baltimore. Those were broken plays. Those were just the quarterback running around and a guy I mean, that type of stuff is not really sustainable, and it's not something that I feel like, oh, we give up all these, ridiculous tons of broken plays. That's just how football goes sometimes. So I was really encouraged by that. That second touchdown drive basically didn't count.
Yeah, I agree.
So that was we were inspiring some hope there. Now we're going to engage physically. And we talked a little bit about, the defensive side of that, but on the offensive side, let's talk about the run game and Carson Steele, who in his first, start as the de facto RB1, 17 rushes, 72 yards, 40 of those came after contact, so a little bit over half, 6 first downs. His first NFL starts definitely there are going to be butterflies there. They were showing his family that was all at his sister's wedding and stuff. And I mean, I'm sure he had a billion things on his mind. Crocky J, of
Yeah.
course, being one of them. The other guy who had a primary role in the running game was Samaje Perine, had 6 carries for 25 yards, 12 of those after contact. Worthy and Rice both chipped in 4 carries, and Mahomes had 3 scrambles for around 30 yards before he took a bunch of losses on some end of game kneel down stuff. But I thought the running game took what was there. They didn't put the Chiefs in any major holes. I never felt like they were overwhelmed or anything like that. It was generally more competitive, I think, than I would have expected, given the loss of the guy that you go into the season expecting to be your RB1, Pacheco. I just wasn't sure if this was going to be zero run game for the Chiefs, if they were just going to kind of let Mahomes figure everything out and run a token run when it was a short yardage, but they stuck with it, and they had a running game in this, which I was impressed by. You mentioned earlier the left tackle situation with Wanya Morris, getting him some help, bringing in Kingsley Suamataia as an inline tight end on some jumbo plays, and the swap there is something that I mean we'll monitor as the season goes on. We don't really know if that's something that the coaching staff just wanted to get Kingsley, let him get his head above water for a little bit, or if they feel that Wanya's the long-term answer there. We'll see. But I felt like the left tackle situation was not nearly as dire. And imagine that you're not going up against Trey Hendrickson, and now the left tackle looks a lot better than it did the week before. Imagine that. There's always stuff to work on, but they're kind of singles hitters right now in the run game. There's no home run threat out of the two guys between Pirine and Steele. Longest carry between the two was 9 yards. How would you evaluate the rushing attack and the way that they approached either Atlanta or just like schematically or like what do you think of the Chiefs running the football right now?
No, I think that they just tried to vary what they did, but simplify it as well. It was very between almost the guards, not even just the tackles, but between the guards, just get
Yeah.
straight up field. Don't even worry about trying to do anything else. And it's funny how it seems that they can finally understand that maybe they did when they don't have a laterally challenged running, or when they do have a laterally challenged running back, to not run outside zone. I don't know what
Right?
happened, but maybe the whole situation with Clyde has opened up their eyes that, oh, we shouldn't be running outside zone with guys who can't run outside zone, especially from
You've been preaching
shotgun.
that
So
since your first show on our show. I mean, it's been
yeah,
tough.
it's only been it's been a long preaching conversation, and here we are
Mhm.
in 2024, and it seems like they finally understood it. So it's nice to see that maybe they have a little bit of understanding with that. And Carson Steele just did what you want him to do. I think Andy Reid said it best today. He gives you an honest out. Like that's
Yeah.
great. Like that's
Yeah.
exactly what you want from him. A guy on his first start, who for whatever reason, because he wears 42, everyone wants to label him a fullback, and he's
Right.
not a fullback. We've watched him literally play running back his entire career in college, but because he's wearing a number, all right, he's a fullback now. No, that's not how it works. So, yeah, I think that he and Samaje Perine are fine. It's fine. They had enough to get what you wanted done, specifically in the second half. I think they helped with the clock and get the Chiefs offense. I mean, outside of the drives that they did not accomplish anything.
Right. Right. That'll happen.
Um, so
Any
again,
pass
I think
pro
that,
concerns or anything? I mean,
yeah, yeah.
the role between those two seemed to at least get you through an NFL game okay?
I think that Carson Steele's great as a chipper, and he did a great job chipping for Wanya Morris specifically. And that's exactly what you want. He bodied a couple of guys where it was, maybe he didn't get out to his route, but guess what? Guys were open anyway. Like that's why I never understood Andy in the whole, we're not really gonna chip, but we're also gonna expect our left tackle to do everything, Kingsley Suamataia, but
Yeah.
not you, Wanya Morris. Sorry, I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter. At all, but he's not going to be a great pass protection like running back yet. Like he still missed a couple of, I believe, shifts and blitzes, but that's what Samaje Perine is there for. And now with Kareem Hunt back up, we know he can do all those things. Like
Yep.
he's not going to be a problem with pass protection or with pass catching because he's already been very good at those things for a long time. So it's going to help Carson Steele maybe get more narrow minded with what he's supposed to be doing and just focus on what he has to do and run the football, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I love that. And, for their part, Andy and Patrick both said that they feel like Kareem has, hit the ground running with coming back in and they thought that his retention was good of the playbook and all that stuff. So, I mean, obviously it's been 6 years. Things are going to change. It's not the same offense. It's not even the same offensive coordinator, even though it is still Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So,
Yeah.
there'll be a learning curve, but I do feel pretty confident that he can walk into, this game this weekend and be able to do anything that they ask him to do. So, now we get to F. We get to finish strong. And this one's going to be all about the defense again. Atlanta had 4 drives in the second half of this game, and they went punt, 54-yard field goal, downs. So pretty decent end results for those drives. I thought Spags had a lot of answers in the second half, but obviously we do have to point out, as you said earlier, Atlanta was down a couple linemen. Right tackle Caleb McGarry and center Drew Dalman both left with injuries. And you could really tell that kind of sucked the air out of their offense. Once they were both back in the locker room and they had backups in, it just wasn't working for Atlanta's offense. They couldn't really protect. They couldn't really get much going in the run game. But still, the Chiefs did manage 2 sacks and 10 more quarterback hits on Cousins. So they were in and around. They didn't maybe have as big of a pressure day as we've ever seen, but there was enough to make the second half uncomfortable for an offense that looked like they found their footing early on in this game and in the previous game. So I mean, I think that holding an offense down like Atlanta is pretty respectable. I think if you can go into that game and hold them, you're doing a good job. And so it was nice to see some more evidence. I think that the 2024 defense looks capable of following up the 2023 campaign. Not to say that they're exactly the same. They've got a couple different pieces, and the 2023 defense. I think we all have to kind of realize that these guys could be very good this year and not be as good as the 23 defense. That defense was unbelievable. They were second or first in most major defensive statistical categories. They were unbelievable. But it's nice to see that this defense still comes out, still has some swagger in a big game against a big time, offense and opponent, and they're able to make some plays. So, defense so far through 3 games, is there anything they're doing right now that is concerning you, or do you feel like they're pretty much what you would have expected at this point in the year?
This is pretty much exactly what I expected. I think I think the secondary, I think Jalen Watson has been better than I expected. And that is in large part because he was injured and he looked like he was exhausted in the preseason. Again,
Yeah.
getting his legs under him was very, very important. But that guy's a gamer. And I should just expect that when the lights click on and it's real game time, that he's just going to be good. And he's been, I think, better this year than he's ever been, too. That's another guy who's really playing better and he's playing confidently. We have seen regression from Josh Williams. He is no longer playing as the guy in dime. It's Najee Johnson. And he got beat a few times by Drake London, but that was his first real game experience. Like he's played a little bit. He played a little bit against the Bengals, but this is where he's playing the majority now. He's going to be that third corner, at least as of it looks right now. So he's getting real looks, and that's good for him. I think that as he gets more removed from that injury, he'll get better and better, and that's what you want. So those guys are playing better than I expected them to, and the linebackers are playing far worse in terms of coverage than I think we all assumed they would be worse, but I wasn't expecting Drew Tranquil to have this type of season where he feels like he's behind all the time in coverage. And I don't know why that is. I don't know exactly what his responsibilities are being asked of him. And I know that everyone's going to point to, oh, Willie Gay, we miss Willie Gay. Yeah, you miss his speed. You miss his ability to make up for mistakes because he's not the best coverage player. Let's be honest about it. But he made up for mistakes with raw aggression and downhill speed. Like that
Yeah.
is what he was
Yeah.
able to do.
That's him in
So
a nutshell. Yeah.
yeah, so I was expecting the linebackers to be bad in coverage. They've been bad in coverage, and the corners outside of Trent McDuffie, specifically the one in Jalen Watson has really impressed me. I've been very happy with that. So all in all, it's hard to ask for much more than what they're doing right now. You'd love to see the defensive ends get more pressure, though. You'd love for them to be able to do
Yeah.
that, and hopefully we're seeing some glimpses of actual development on Felix Enrique Uzama's part, and he
That'd
could
be
be
nice.
added into the rotation a little bit more going forward.
Sure, it'd be nice to use a first round pick on a guy that has an impact on the team. That'd be great. I'd be a big fan of that. Yeah, it's this team and cornerbacks, man, and developing
Yeah.
them and finding them. They're just unstoppable. Shamari Connor and Jalen Watson and Nazeeh Johnson and I mean those guys are just latest in a long line of Dave Merritt and Spags and Brett Veach and everyone involved with whoever makes any decisions for scouting or for roster management on that side of the ball and with that group, A plus. They're
Mhm.
always game and ready to go. So that was finished strong. And so now we're going to separate entirely, which is the best part of the Chief system because that's the part that ends in the dub. So normally the offense is kind of tasked with the separate entirely step, but with 4:04 on the clock, teams clinging to a 5-point lead after the first fourth down stop in the end zone, which we haven't spent a lot of time on because it is what it is. It was a blown call in the Chiefs' favor, but it's not something that happens nearly as often as the national narrative makes it out to be. There were plenty of blown calls against the Chiefs in this game, so I know that was a big topic of conversation because that's the topic anytime the Chiefs win a game is how could we let this happen again? But the first fourth down stop in the end zone leads to the Chiefs getting the ball back, and they're backed up. They were in the shadow of their own end zone. They tried to run just a little shallow cross on 3rd and 2 that it looked like there was a miscommunication. A lot of people have kind of speculated that Rashee Rice ran the wrong route and ran into Xavier Worthy's zone, and he kind of slowed down because of it. So they had a play. It would have worked if everything kind of was executed correctly, but it wasn't, and it didn't. So they had to punt the ball back. And never fun when you give the other team, the ball with 2:26 left in the game, down 5. And they were at their own 35. They just needed to march down the field and score a touchdown, and they could win the game. Similar situation to Baltimore, where they get the ball back. They were down 7 at the time, but everyone, had kind of anticipated if Baltimore had scored that they would have gone for 2. So you knew you were defending the game in that long drive. And like a lightning strike, thanks no small part to some very questionable makeup calls, as I said earlier, by the refs against the Chiefs. The ball instantly gets teleported to the Kansas City 22-yard line with 1:44 to go. So in 30 short seconds, 13 yards of that gain were via Atlanta passes, and 31 of them were via penalty, including the craziest defensive pass interference on Trent McDuffie that I'm sure has ever happened in his career. Well, I guess Jamar Chase pulled him down earlier
Yeah,
last week,
yeah.
and he got a call in there too. So he's been a victim a couple times here, but I digress. We don't complain about the refs. A second pass down to Drake London came up just short of the line to gain. Atlanta calls a timeout. They think about it. They try and figure out what they're going to do on this 3rd and 1 play. They try and hand off left guard to Tyler Algier. Doesn't work. Drew Tranquil, for his part, stones him in the hole there and sets up a 4th and 1. And then I thought something that I don't remember the last time, if I've ever seen this. I might not have ever seen this before, but curiously, both Atlanta and Kansas City tried to call a timeout at the same time. Like the play was stopped. The Chiefs wanted to save time, I guess. I was trying to put myself in both. I know why Atlanta called the timeout. They called the timeout there. They had a 4th down. They wanted plenty of time in case they got the 4th down. They wanted enough time to then go up and either spike or continue with their game-winning drive because we all knew it was short yardage. But the Chiefs, I guess they thought if they call a timeout here, that they're going to try and save enough time to where if Atlanta either Atlanta's going to lose the game and lose the fourth down, or they're going to continue their drive. And I don't know. I don't know. I was trying to do the whole football, strategizing. But in any case, when both teams call the timeout, I guess, you're going to charge the away team for the timeout and not the home team. So Kansas City's charged the timeout. And on the fourth down play, the Falcons tried the outside zone. They tried to get Bijan free off the left side. Algier misread his block, completely went outside of the hole, and Nick Bolton just came screaming through and stopped him dead in his tracks. 3-yard loss, wins the ball game. They had to do a little shenaniganry with the kneel downs to make sure it lasted the full 50 whatever seconds. But they preserved the win just like they drew it up. Any final thoughts on separating entirely on this last sequence, either the defensive performance or the lack of execution on the offense?
I don't know how you go out there on fourth down and run the same shit you've been trying to all
Yeah.
game. How you do that?
Maybe it'll work this time.
Yeah, that's just lead block our running back and one of our running backs and just make it. I don't have a clue. It makes no sense at all. And at worst, you get Tyler Algier, who's not a blocker, by the way, with Nick Bolton screaming downhill. You think that's a good matchup? You think that's what you want in that situation? Ideally, that's what they were going to get.
Right. On that's their best case scenario. Yeah.
Come on, Atlanta. But just really quickly, I love how everyone focuses on the Chiefs not getting called in the end zone, but completely ignores the refs walking them down the field on the drive after, because that never happened, right? It never happened.
Or the roughing the passer that gifted him a touchdown earlier in the game. It's people just, if the Chiefs are the team that's going to win a game, then they're going to look at whatever calls went their way and say, oh, the refs are in their favor. It's maddening. It's maddening for people like us that can see what's actually happening and don't have the Chiefs derangement syndrome. But it is what it is. The haters are going to keep hating. Nothing we can really do about it.
You're right. And it's just funny. It makes me laugh now. I also saw today that Gronk was saying that the Chiefs get more calls than the Pats ever did. That's a load of baloney. We have actual proof of that one with Chris Jones. So yeah, that's just some fun stuff. But at the end of the day, the offense is going to be able to execute when, in high leverage situations. I think that the fact that they had Xavier Worthy on the field there was a good thing. I think he had to have been running the route wrong. I'll be honest.
He had Worthy was not Rice.
Rice knows where he's supposed to be on the field.
Okay.
So, and the fact that he just, Xavier stopped running his route entirely tells me he didn't know what he was doing. So whether he was supposed to be right there at that time, or he was supposed to be a little bit earlier, or a little bit later. So maybe he was supposed to be coming behind a little bit later than he already was. I think
Andy said it was a deep cross that wasn't run by one of the two. And so I was trying to figure out if the one that didn't run it was Rice or Worthy, but I guess he said that there was a deep cross that both of them ran shallow.
Okay. So yeah, somebody ran the wrong route. I don't know who it was. Yeah. He's not going to out somebody, but the fact that the simple fact of the matter is, if you're even if you're running the wrong route, run it all the way through.
Yeah,
because Pat was going to
catch the ball.
He was going to throw it to you. He was going to throw it to you. And that would have been a first down. So you get, okay, by the way, Xavier, you ran the wrong route. Good job getting the first down. You're in the wrong spot. Okay. That just run all the way through the route. I don't really care. And this stuff is going to all get figured out by the Chiefs. Again, this is week 3. They're still ironing out some stuff. Some key members are not there, and Pacheco and Hollywood Brown. And so maybe you have Xavier running routes in high leverage situations that you didn't expect to have. Or maybe Rashee Rice was wrong. I guess I'm just more wanting to put the blame on the rookie because it
makes more sense
in a high leverage situation.
Absolutely.
But it could have been Rashee. Who knows? But yeah, the offense I think will get figured out. So I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah, that's fair. And then, so that's the final, 22-17. Chiefs moved to 3-0. Falcons dropped to 1-2, even though, I feel like they're a pretty well put together team, and I think they'll make some noise in the NFC. I think these 3 wins over teams that are combined. Baltimore pulled one off against the Cowboys when they were up big, and then the Cowboys were trying to storm back to go to 1-2. So these 3 teams the Chiefs have defeated after Cincinnati got their asses kicked by the
Yeah.
suddenly resurgent and amazing Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels. But my point was that these two teams are now, or these three teams are combined 2-7 in their first 3 weeks, including 3 losses to the Chiefs. And they all seem like pretty damn good teams. They all seem like teams that are going to be there in the end. We'll see how Cincinnati turns around their own 3 start, but they've done it time and time in the last couple seasons anyway. So I'm feeling pretty good about the schedule. If you looked at the schedule before the season started and said Baltimore, Cincinnati at home, on the road against, a revamped, revitalized Atlanta offense and all that stuff, I'm taking 3-0 by hook or by crook. And so that's an important win for this team, especially going into the game we're about to preview. Before we wrap up, we got to do our awards. And so, of course, anybody that's listened to the show knows that we have 3 types of awards. We have our 5-star man. Who screams out by his play on the field, I'm a 5-star man. We have our trash men.
I'm the trash man. I come out, I throw trash all over the ring, and then I start eating garbage.
Who are eating garbage all over the field through their play. And then, of course, we have our wild cards.
Wild card, bitches! Yeah!
Who are capable of anything. I'm going to start off with the 5-star man, and my 5-star man is going to be the heart and soul of this offense in this game, which was Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice was, otherworldly, and he just, the way that the offense opened up for him, the field opened up for him with all the attention that Travis Kelce was pulling and all that stuff was something to be seen. He had 14 targets, 12 catches, 110 yards. He had a long of 27. He had a first down rush. Just did everything. He was a guy that, when in doubt, Patrick feels comfortable going to him time and time again. He kind of serves the new version of the Travis Kelce role of the last couple years of the offense, which is shit hits the fan, try and figure something out, go look for Rashee Rice, go find number 4, and it's probably going to work out okay. I was really impressed with him. I've been really impressed with him. I'm very much not looking forward to the NFL deciding to come down and suspend him right before the playoffs start, which I'm guessing is going to happen. No, not really, but it's going to be tough to lose him in this offense whenever they do. What did you think about Rice, and who's your 5-star man?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with not just how he's played, but the development. Like, he's really understanding where he needs to be on the field, exactly when he's supposed to be there, and then how to make the first guy miss. That is not something he did in college. Like, I feel like people forget exactly the kind of player he was. He was very much we are going to throw you up the football and you're going to just come down with it, because that's what he was. He was a dunk monster at SMU. And then Andy Reid gets him in camp and he's like, hey, you got some wheels on you, kid. You got some explosion. And
let's use them.
You know all that stuff you did in college? Forget it. We are going to turn you into a zone beating, yards after the catch machine. And I have said this, I have multiple shows, records, that Rashee Rice will be taking over the Travis Kelce role when he retires. That's what this is. There, it's clear as day. It is 100%. Yes. And when you get that relationship with Patrick Mahomes, where he's starting to see where you are supposed to be, you're starting to see, oh, I need to be over here. I see the defense moving, which that will come more with time. I think right now he's more, I know where I'm supposed to be, and Patrick trusts that I'm supposed to be here. And in a few years, when he starts to see defenses the way that Travis does, maybe, that's when you start going to see the post game script stuff actually happen. And I'm excited to see what goes on there. But hard to argue, he's been a fantastic player. I'm going to take mine to the other side of the field, because this was a player who, nobody knew when he was drafted. Not anyone that I knew, from at least that covers the Chiefs, knew who Jamari Conner was. And coming off of a game where he had a fumble recovery for a touchdown, a sack, and a tackle for loss against the Bengals, he comes in with his best day as a pro, racking up 10 tackles with those 6 defensive stops that we talked about, and 2 pass breakups and an interception that he tried to get to somebody else to score a touchdown, because that's the selfless nature of this defense, this entire team. And it just goes to show you how it is. Remember, I mean, we saw this against the Dolphins. They turned this into a Trent McDuffie fumble recovery, a forced fumble, into a touchdown. He tried to do the same thing. and what Connor has done specifically in this football game. He's not going to be the ideal player to have on a team that wants to just throw the ball all around the yard and you have to cover this small, shifty guy out of the slot. That's not his game. But this is the kind of game he lives for. He actually was tackling way better in this football game than he usually does outside of his couple of blunders, which I'm willing to overlook the blunder in this situation because of how well he played. So, Tramari Connor absolutely gets my 5-star player from this game.
I love it. He was unbelievable and continues to, as we highlighted with the DBs, just continues to be a hilarious weapon for the Chiefs that they can just create these monsters in the secondary out of seemingly thin air. It's great. Now, of course, we will go to the trash man. And yeah, there are a couple directions I wanted to go with this. At first, I wanted to name the NFL referees because it's been rough, and I know it's a hard job, and I know that they don't have a bias. I know they don't. I know they're just trying to go out there and make the right calls, but when they screw up in Chiefs games, I have to deal with it. So it's a little annoying. But I'm not going to go with the refs because, again, I think they're fine. I'm going to go with a guy that I'm going to take an opportunity to name a guy as a trash man that is very rare, and that's Patrick Mahomes. And I know that our perception of Patrick Mahomes' play is very skewed, especially if you watch any other NFL football ever and you see these other quarterbacks and you realize that Patrick Mahomes struggling is another guy's pretty damn good day. Like he's still got it, but by his own admission, he has not been playing super well. And not only do the numbers back it up with the box score stuff, and he's not throwing for many yards, and he's throwing more interceptions than touchdowns. I mean, he's having a non-Patrick Mahomes start to the year, but I'm really more just naming him here to light a fire under his ass because I know he listens to the show. Hi, Pat. And I know that he will think about the fact that we named him Trash Man for probably the first time in years. And he'll go out there on Sunday and he'll put up an unbelievable performance. So, Pat, get it together. I know you're trying your hardest, but you're my trash man this week.
I understand it. I get it, and then that's part of the reason why I tweeted what I tweeted at halftime. Like it's you have to be able to look at what's actually happening and not just have fan ears and fan eyes and fan glasses the whole time. You can't just see stuff with rose colored glasses. And I think that Patrick, like he's talked about, has not played very well. And that's fine. It's going to happen. He didn't play very well last year for times, but he also lifted everyone around him at the same time. He's still doing that. Like
I still love him to death.
Well, he's still doing all that. So yeah, it's fair. It's a fair thing. I'm going to go ahead and give mine to Andy Reid, and not because of like play calling. I thought the play calling was fine. Execution was more of an issue. I have a bone to pick with Andy Reid. I fully believe that they gave Kingsley Suamataia a raw deal. And you guys heard earlier in the show, I'm very bitter about the whole situation. Not because he was a guy that I want to be the left tackle and because I think he's going to be very good. Those things are still true. But when you just go and objectively watch the first 2 football games, he was baptized by fire. He was. Adafe Owe got him a couple of times. David Ojabo got him a couple of times. And then he went up against Trey Hendrickson, who I believe is a worse matchup than anybody maybe in the league at this time is for him specifically. And Andy Reid left him out to dry. And then they benched him. They bring Wanya Morris in, who I don't think played great in his relief. He got a penalty and things like that. But then in the
Bengals game. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, in the Bengals game. In this game, he played fine, but they helped him. They actually helped him. And that it bothers me personally. Like this is a personal thing for me. That's why he's my trash man. It's a problem that I don't agree with and something that this would have been a good opportunity to get Kingsley comfortable again. This is one of the worst pass rushes in football in the first 3 weeks of the season. Still was against the Chiefs. And this would have been a great chance to get his confidence back. And they didn't do that. Instead, Wanya Morris, you are now our left tackle for the foreseeable future of the season. But not just that, we're going to help you out in the process. But sorry, Kingsley, you didn't get the benefit of that. That personally bothers me. And then the last thing was not just going for it on 4th down and 2. When who cares if they score a touchdown? You're right there. You
At
have
the end of the game?
timeouts. Yeah, who
Yeah.
cares?
Yes.
Who cares?
Yep.
Just get if they score, fine. But just go for the 4th down. If they score a touchdown, guess what? You got like a minute 50, maybe 2 minutes left, and you have two timeouts.
Yeah, that was interesting. Ben Baldwin, of course, does a go for it bot on Twitter, and it's always interesting to see what the analytics say on a purely win percentage, perspective on going for it. And yeah, you're right. The argument for going for it deep in your own territory at that point in the game was that you're actually so close to your end zone that if you get it, you win the game because you run out the clock. And if you don't get it, the other team doesn't have enough field to run out the clock. Like unless they want to kneel 3 times and then try and score a touch or whatever, like they're going to have to try and score a touchdown as soon as they possibly can, which with your 5-point lead is going to mean that at most you're down 3 after that possession. If you don't get it on 4th, they score a touchdown, they get a 2. Now you're down 3. Now you still have a 2-minute drive with Patrick Mahomes and Harrison Butker to go get 3 points. So like, you're right. I think Andy doesn't think outside the box with football strategy. Now, he absolutely thinks outside the box with a lot of game management and like offensive, scheming and all the fun things that make him one of the greatest coaches of all time. There is no knock about his football mind or his acuity. It's just when he tries to think 2 or 3 steps ahead in a football game, like a lot of us do. I don't know if this is from growing up playing football video games for our generation. I don't know if that's where a lot of our late 20s, late 30s range of people kind of grew up with PlayStations and trying to play Madden and trying to think at the late stages of like when to call timeouts. And like, that just feels like it's more ingrained in our football watching brain than maybe some of these football coaches. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a little bit of arrogance, but it pissed me off too.
Yeah, it's hard to, it's tough. So yeah, sorry, Andy, you're my trash man this week.
Yep, that's fair. Okay, so we now get to our wild cards. I'm going to name punter Matt Ariza. That catch on that wild snap where he jumped out of the stadium to jump up and grab it, and then not only did he prevent it from going behind his head and giving the Falcons what would have been a short field, he bombed it. He dropped it on his left foot and sent it down to the around the 10-yard line or whatever of Atlanta, and then we thought at first it was a Chiefs fumble recovery. Turns out the guy was down. But just a really funny wild card type of play by Matt Ariza for a guy that, you try not to think about the punter too much. And if he gets the punts away, then he did his job and all that stuff. But the moment that play happened, I said to myself, he's my wild card this week. Like, that was crazy.
Yeah, I like that call. It's hard to get into exactly what goes through a person's mind like that. Like, how often does it happen? You don't see, James Winchester do that all that often. So he probably has never even seen it. So being able to do that
Definitely.
was definitely something that you really like. My wild card, Juju Smith-Schuster.
Cool.
I love that he just showed up and did the exact same thing that Travis Kelce does, where that was, if you guys remember, that's like the Travis Kelce route touchdown that on 3rd down or whatever it is, they just have him run a pick, or the left side of the offense run a pick. He runs underneath it and it's a touchdown. The Chargers happens multiple times in that overtime game where they did it and they got him on Derwin James. It's just cool that they ran it for Juju in that moment. And he was able to come in, make a few plays. I think he was a really good blocker in this football game. And when you have, I think what he's playing like in Kansas City, not like what he was playing like in New England, that's what you want from him. A good blocker, going to be in the right spot, and he can do exactly what you need him to. That's the definition of a wild card. You don't know what you're going to get. You can have him drop a touchdown one game, you have him score a touchdown and be a really good blocker the other. So that's what he gets it for me.
Yep, I love it. You don't know which version of Juju you're going to get. Is it going to be the old awesome Pittsburgh version? Is it going to be the old awesome Chiefs version? Is it going to be the washed New England version? You just don't know. So that was fun to see. Definitely love to watch that kid continue to have some success. I love bringing the band back together in general. Kareem Hunt, Juju Smith-Schuster, and just, guys walk away for a second. We're like, nah, come on back. We got some more winning to do. So that's always fun. That'll do it for the Atlanta recap. weird game, fun game, definitely stressful game, as the Chiefs have been inclined to have for the last, I don't know, it feels like 100 years. But maybe eventually one of their games is not going to be dramatic. And with that little teaser, let's talk about the Week 4 Chiefs at Chargers preview. Um, I have no idea who's going to play football for the Los Angeles Chargers. Let's start with the Chargers practice today. Not at practice. Starting quarterback Justin Herbert, starting left tackle Joe Alt, starting right tackle Rashawn Slater, starting right guard Trey Pipkins, starting slot cornerback Ja'Sir Taylor, starting linebacker Joey Bosa, starting defensive tackle Atito Ogbonnia, and starting safety, all pro, all world, suspended Derwin James. So, Dan, who is going to be out there? I mean, how do you even preview a game where all these guys are banged up? The Chiefs have no one banged up. We can't even talk about their current season DVOA or their last week's performance or anything that's happened to the Los Angeles Chargers so far this year, because none of those guys are going to be playing.
That's the thing, right? Even the Chiefs are probably trying to figure out what they're going to do, because you can't game plan for a team that you've never seen. And that's essentially what this is going to be. It's tape where you don't have. And if it's Taylor Heineke, even if it's a hobble Justin Herbert, how are they going to utilize him? It's not going to be the same as it was last week. And he's not going to be he's going to be more limited than he usually is. So the number of injuries makes it difficult to game plan for. At the end of the day, you just kind of have to do what you've seen from the Chargers, right? You have to kind of assume, even with the banged up offensive line, it's Jim Harbaugh. He's going to run the football, and he's going to want to run the football. And even if it's Taylor Heineke, you cannot sleep on Taylor Heineke. You can't do it, because he's a wily veteran. Look at what Andy Dalton just did to the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, he's not Andy Dalton. He doesn't have the arm that Andy does, but he's that wily veteran where he comes in, he scrambles for a few first downs, he hits someone deep downfield, because he seemingly always does with his noodle arm. He just seemingly does. So it's like the true definition of a wild card game for the Chiefs. And magically, even though they should win this football game by a lot, I'm very sure it's going to be a stupidly close football game.
We'll get to our picks. I do feel like not only is it new from last week to this week for a lot of these players, but it's new from last year to this year. Like you said, new head coach in Jim Harbaugh, new offensive coordinator in Greg Roman, new pieces all over the offense. Even if they were all healthy and playing, out is Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Austin Eckler and the guys that the Chiefs are very familiar with and have game planned 20 games over the last couple years against this team. And instead, you've got Ladd McConkey and you've got Quentin Johnston and J.K. Dobbins, and it's just kind of, I think that Andy's probably going to treat it as a week 1 game. Like you would be going in with a brand new rebuilt team after an offseason. And like you said, you just have to kind of go with what you think are going to be some tendencies. But Jim Harbaugh barely has enough tape over the last 3 weeks to really figure out what it is that he's trying to do, other than, he wants to run the football, but he wants to run the football when Joe Alt's in there and when Rashawn Slater's in there and Trey Pipkins. And you just don't know what's going to happen if the Chiefs are going to stack the box because they know that he's got a hobbled Justin Herbert or a Taylor Heineke back there. So it's really interesting. Matchup wise, like long term, the Chiefs have won 5 in a row versus the Chargers, dating back to that September 2021 loss at Arrowhead where the Chargers beat them 30-24. The Chiefs have won 10 in a row on the road in this matchup, dating back to Andy's first trip to San Diego as a coach of the Chiefs in 2013. So it's been a long time since the Chiefs have gone on the road and not come out of this with a win. The Chiefs pretty much own the AFC West. Now, they got God a couple times last year in some weird situations, but in general, Andy Reid's been one of the most, if not the most successful head coaches against his own division in NFL history. So I don't know. Do you think that with division, are you one of the people that thinks that division matchups bring about weirdness or bring about familiarity and therefore are more predictable? Like some people will err on like, oh, anything can happen because it's a division matchup, and other people are like, well, but they see these guys all the time and they should have a pretty good idea about it. Where do you fall on that kind of argument?
Yeah, I think for the Chiefs side, that it'll be a little bit different because they are not sure what to expect in terms of the I guess the comfort of Jim Harbaugh, and that offense does give you an idea of what they're going to want to do. But they still, it's a Jesse Minter is now the defensive coordinator who is doing some very good things with their run games, their run defense specifically. You got some run stunts. They're I believe second in rushing success rate on defense, which is the first time since 2020 that they've even been close to the
Oh
top
man,
10.
sure, I
And
bet.
so when you have something like that, it limits, I think, what the Chiefs can do, because we know running the football is not necessarily their strength. And you have Carson Steele with Kareem Hunt and Samaje Perine. It's not the most, I would say, confidence invoking running back room to get a running game off the ground. But also, we know, what are they going to want to do? Stop Patrick from throwing the football. Like that, there's so many different things that could happen. But I think that the Chiefs specifically, that you have some veterans on the Chargers that will maybe know what to expect a little bit. Derwin James not playing in this football game, I think, is huge.
Right,
Pretty big.
right.
And I saw that Jim Harbaugh came out talking, like defending him. Have you watched this dude play football, Jim? Do you care that he literally throws his helmet at
Yes,
people in the
yes,
air all the time? Like he's been asking for this for years,
he
for
has.
years.
There's no
So
chance the NFL suspends him just on a whim, a star player. I mean, he's not
no,
just a nobody either. He's Derwin James, and they clearly have identified him as a person of of this type of conduct. So I agree with you. I think that
yeah,
it's crazy that Harbaugh defended it for sure.
I understand it
So
too. Like I get it.
yeah, yeah. So we've got to pick this game. It's kind of ridiculous at this point how every matchup has come down to the wire, and this looks like it should be an ass kicking on paper. It looks like it should be a get right game for the Chiefs. It looks like they're going up against the mash unit of the Chargers, and they should be able to do whatever they want. I just can't bring myself to predict a close game with this squad until I see it. I'm going with 19 or to not predict a close game until I see it. So I'm going with 19-13 Chiefs. I think that it's going to be another struggle on offense for the Chiefs, but they're going to figure it out. They always figure it out. I think the Chargers are going to do something wild, like a trick play touchdown or an onside kick, or I mean, I guess you can't surprise onside kick these days, so that's out of the window.
Nope.
But Chiefs will probably turn it over a couple of goofy, dumb times that they shouldn't have. Just do normal kind of Chiefs last couple of years, fuck around and don't find out. That's kind of how their philosophy is. So I'm going 19-13 Chiefs. Can you bring yourself to predict a blowout? Or I think you said earlier you think it's probably going to be close again.
Well, I don't rule out,
Yeah,
it being close.
never
I
can rule
also
out.
think, considering Patrick has started the season with 3 consecutive games of him turning the football over, and this
Mhm,
pass defense is suspect. It is
mhm.
suspect. You have a lot of young players and not very good players. Christian Fulton, who's kind of dinged up, but he's been playing better for them. I think that they can be got in the back end specifically quite consistently. I think the Chiefs are going to put up a number. I think they're going to win 31-21, and it gets closer at the end. I know that it's not
Okay,
necessarily a blowout,
that's
but
comfortable. That's 10 points,
it's a
baby.
comfortable win that gets maybe closer at the end, because I feel like if it's Taylor Heineke playing, he's just going to do something stupid and it's going to end up working out for him. Like the one time Quentin Johnston comes down with a 50-50 ball in the end zone,
Right.
it's against the Chiefs. I just feel like that fuckery is going to happen.
Yeah, probably so. Well, once again, thank you so much for filling in for Austin while he gallivants around. If anyone was listening to this and thought, well, that show was way better than normal, you can find Dan over on Twitter at In Harm's Way 19. And of course, all of the wonderful work you do with RGR Football and the Draft Network. And I guess now Bleacher Report. I mean, are you going to be on ESPN next? Anything else you got going on I don't know about?
We're waiting to hear on if Bleacher Report's going to extend through the rest of the year, but we did the first month over there. But I wish, I don't necessarily want to work with ESPN.
Yeah.
I've lost my respect for ESPN over the years with the
Yeah, you and
people that they
everybody
have
else.
prompted up there. But I appreciate the way that you said that. I'm trying. We're all just working, and I'm just trying to get better every day. And the fact that it's come with what it's come with is a great thing. And I'm just, every time I come back here It helps me remember where I came from, and I love coming back to this show because it's such a great experience, not just for me, but the fact that you guys have consistently grown and fostered this level of fanhood and I think respect for the game is awesome. So that's why I always love coming back.
Well, we love having you. You were, of course, I'm sure we'll check in with you here before too long on the old drama of the Chiefs season. And for everyone else, we'll see you next week. It is always sunny in Chiefs Kingdom.
Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. Now is the time to make a plan. Whether you plan to vote absentee by mail, in person at your county auditor's office before Election Day, or at your polling place on November 5th, it's important you take steps now to make your plan at voterready.iowa.gov. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. Find more info at voterready.iowa.gov. This message is presented by the Iowa Secretary of State.